I want to bring in former NYPD Detective Sergeant Felipe Rodriguez, who's an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. First off, your reaction to what's unfolding right now in New Orleans.
Once again, we're seeing, these terrorist acts, whether they labeled it at this time or not, due to the, huge amount of deaths that we have here. And now we also might have secondary explosives or, something else that could have been plotted. At this time, they're not giving any information whether the individual was arrested. It might be because, it might be some sort of sleeper cell, something related to terrorism, and we want to tip our hand at this time.
Problems. If you're still with us, I want to ask a little bit about, police prepare for this. New Year's morning, every major city's police department in the country is prepared for the possibility of an incident like this on New Year's. How do police departments, like the New Orleans Police Department, prepare for an incident like this?
Well, one of the statements they made, they said that, we did have full staffing at 100%, but in reality, every department is short. So while we say every officer could have been working that night, that doesn't mean that they had enough individuals to cover all the areas. And they themselves said that they had to bring additional officers from other departments to help supplement them. So that might be something we might have to look at. Even NYPD at this time is suffering with over 7,000 officers less than they should have. The other thing is, the implementation of blocker vehicles. In New York, we use our own patrol cars to make sure that we safeguard the intersections. And at times, we bring in large sand trucks from the sanitation department. So we do try to prevent or mitigate a situation like this.
Can you talk about the scope of protecting an event like this when we're talking about tens of thousands of people out on the streets in a large area? How do police departments prepare for something of this scope, covering such a wide area and so many people?
It is. I've been down to New Orleans, and I can tell you it is a massive task. And it's just making sure that we have the resources, the amount of officers, and something like this is a mass casualty incident. So what happens is, EMS could become overwhelmed. The police officers could become overwhelmed due to the fact that you're trying to control a huge crowd at the same time while rendering aid, while trying to capture an individual that's committing the act. So as you can see, it's just a lot to take in at one time. And, sometimes some things can't be prevented.
I want to mention that, according to police, 2 officers have been shot. They were transported to the hospital, and we are told they are in stable condition. Of course, our thoughts are with them. I want to talk about just, are some of these incidents that we are seeing, we saw in Germany just a few days ago, a similar incident where somebody drove into a crowd. Is there any amount of preparation that can prevent incidents like this? Is this just something that we can't prevent? If somebody wants to do something like this, go to a major location where thousands of people are and drive into a crowd?
It is. Depending, we look at the structures and the way the cities are set up. Sometimes we will have bullards put in place or even large planters when we have large-scale incidents. That's another way of slowing a vehicle down on a sidewalk. But in reality, any vehicle could jump a sidewalk and mow people down. It's, unfortunately, this is something that, not always could be prevented. That's correct.
I want to play some sound right now from the New Orleans Police Department Superintendent, Kirk Patrick, who spoke about how this was a very deliberate action.
Did you see anything?
It was very intentional behavior. This man was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could. It was not a DUI situation. Because of the intentional mindset of this perpetrator who went around our barricades in order to conduct this, he was hell-bent on creating the carnage and the damage that he did.
And we want to continue to talk with Felipe Rodriguez, formerly of the NYPD. And you heard the comments right there. Just what you get a sense from hearing the nature of the attack so far, it seems very clear that this was deliberate. This was not accidental. This was potentially planned based on the nature of it. What do you take away from those comments?
It's like an accident reconstruction. You know, when our investigators go out and we actually see it, there's not going to be any time that the individual, you know, pressed his brakes, so there won't be any sorts of tire marks. The deliberate manner in which he went through the barricades that were put in place, and you know, even the engine sounds and everything that people are hearing, the screeching, and it definitely shows, you know, that there was intent here.
You talked about this before, but we have not yet heard from police whether or not this suspect is alive, whether or not this suspect is in custody. Why at this stage would they necessarily not release that information? Are there reasons why they wouldn't go public with whether or not they're looking for a suspect at this time?
At this time, you know what, we want to get motive. You know, if he is alive, we want to make sure that there's no other individuals that could be planning some other secondary attacks. We're trying to get as much evidence that we could get from him. And it's just intel. We just want to make sure that, you know, he's not part of a larger group that's planning, you know, some other sort of terrorist attack. So it's an investigative technique that's being done at this time because, you know what, we're trying to get answers as much as anybody else. And always establish a motive, because that's important when it comes to, you know, a criminal act and the prosecution of an individual.
Important that you bring that up because we have heard different characterizations of this incident. The mayor called it a terror attack. The FBI says not terror related, but clearly intentional. That is what we are hearing right now. I also want to ask about, you know, a situation like this, New Year's Eve, 3 a.m., New Orleans. You talked about the limitations sometimes with manpower, but there would likely be dozens of officers in that area for an event of this size.
That's correct. And, you know, the statement that was made that they did call additional resources from other departments, and I've seen that done in New Orleans, at which time, you know, the departments are still suffering. So, you know, they asked for a mutual aid assistance. So officers are brought in, the Louisiana State Police and other departments basically come in and give a hand. At NYPD, one of the things that we do is we actually have the graduating class of officers that are just coming out. We specifically assign them to the New Year's Eve detail. This way, you know, we have extra manpower. But in a situation like this, it is an overwhelming situation where the mass casualty incident protocol has to come into place and additional resources have to come in.